Hello and welcome. I'm Eric Gao. You're watching TaiwanPlus, and here's what happened this week. People living around one of Taiwan's most popular travel destinations are pushing back against government plans to build a new tourist resort on their tiny island. Tiffany Wong has the story.
This is Taiwan's southern island of Xiaoliuqiu. Home to 13,000 people, it's best known for its turquoise seas and diverse marine life. But an influx of visitors, 20,000 a day during peak season, has harmed the environment, driving the local government to push tourism to other sites. One of these places is the 87 Highlands. Once protected land, these forests lie 87 meters above sea level. First opened for development in 2014, it was only this year that plans for a resort were approved by the local government. But residents protested, which has put the $8 million project on hold. Now they're calling to return its protected status to prevent future development on the land.
唯一的净土，它如果被更动的话，那势必会造成自然环境上面的影响。
全票通过，要求县政府要让它重回保护区。好，我现在强调就是重回保护区，它原本就是保护区的嘛。
The Pingdong County government has not promised to drop the project entirely, but has agreed to consult residents on future development projects.
在未来的通盘检讨中，参酌乡亲的意见以及小琉球的都市发展的现况，以促进合适的土地使用。
But locals say people who live on the land should get to decide how it's used, and they don't want to see another part of their small island given up to tourists. Until the government restores the highlands' protected status, Xiaoliuqiu's residents intend to safeguard the last untouched parts of their home. Patrick Chen and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Throughout the 1970s and 80s, thousands of former Chinese soldiers were resettled in northern Taiwan, some of the last remnants of what is known as the Lost Army. Their history and community now have their own museum. Ed Moon has more.
A sea of red and blue. Hundreds of Republic of China flags fly in the heart of northern Taiwan's Taoyuan. This is Zhongzhen New Village, and behind flags and quiet exterior lies a story of 20th century war, heartbreak and renewal. Because the people who built this community were not from Taiwan, but were former members of the Republic of China's Lost Army. At the end of the Chinese Civil War in 1949, Chinese nationalist forces led by Chiang Kai-shek escaped not only to Taiwan, but also into Myanmar and other parts of Southeast Asia through the southern Chinese border. There they formed an anti-communist base in the hopes of one day returning home. For decades, these soldiers remained in the so-called Golden Triangle, the area where the borders of China, Laos, Myanmar and Thailand meet. But they weren't welcome guests in their new countries, and the ROC government on Taiwan was eventually forced to evacuate them. Thousands of soldiers were resettled in Taiwan in the 1970s and 80s. Among them was Wang Genshen. Wang was born into an ethnic Chinese family in northern Myanmar. He joined the military intelligence bureau embedded in the Lost Army when he was just 15.
当时我们是华侨学校，我们老师就是当年远征军留在缅甸的这些军人，中华民国，于是乎在灌输我们是中华民国是你的宗主国。
Wang was determined to tell the Lost Army story to others in Taiwan. In 2022, he opened the Lost Army Story House right in the heart of the Taoyuan community where so many of its former soldiers had settled.
这个奔走跟这个10几年的时间里面，遇到很大的挫折，因为政府它没有经费来做这件事情。那后来呢，只有我自己做，所以我故事馆花10几年时间收集资料，单单收集资料就花了很多的精力跟物力。
Among the stories told in the museum is Wang's own. He fought as an anti-communist guerrilla in Southeast Asia. He even helped American forces.
那我们是那个时候我们就变成一个小组，就帮这个美军呢找他的基地。那基地怎么找呢？就是比如他老美他面孔跟东方人不一样，他没法深入到他的那个底后去，只有我们去帮忙找，拍那个携带小的摄影机啊、小的这个照相机的器材啊，然后去找到苗共的基地以后呢，开始做坐标，坐标和回报以后呢。 他们就向那边射击，沿着炮弹攻击。
Wang then became a secret agent. One of his jobs was to recruit and deploy spies into China.
我们每一个情报员呢，你手下会有县民的，还有一些是专门作为暗杀的做一些。那我当 目标确定了，任务确定以后，我就找我下面的手下人去执行这个东西。
While the Lost Army is a topic close to Wang's heart, not all in Taiwan are happy to see it celebrated. For some, the Army's members and its history are Chinese and should not be associated with Taiwan.
很多台湾人会认为说，这些人根本心不在台湾，就是不会想要留下来为台湾这块土地打拼的话，很多人是持反对态度，而且这些人他们忠于的是蒋介石集团的那一个政权。当然，对很多台湾人来讲的话，也有些台湾人是没办法接受这样的一个观念。
Officially, though, Taiwan's government has continued to support the soldiers. It has helped Lost Army veterans and their family members settle in Taiwan, giving them somewhere to build a new life and a chance to remember the trauma of the past.
我们最主要是希望这些军人呢灵魂得以安息，那没有死的人呢，还在存活的这些军人呢得到一个安慰，最起码还有人记得他们，国家记得他们，这样的感觉来做这个故事馆。
Eason Chen, Sam Hui, and Ed Moon for TaiwanPlus.
Scientists have teamed up with volunteers to record noise pollution around Taiwan's capital. As Laurel Stewart explains, they created a map to help residents find some peace and quiet.
Searching for silence, or at least the sounds of nature. Scientists from Taiwan's Academia Sinica have teamed up with a local NGO to monitor sound levels around Taipei. They collected data to build an interactive soundscape map, showing people where they can go to escape the hustle and bustle of the city. Layla Fan has been recording natural sounds in Taiwan for more than 20 years. She says when people take the time to stop and listen, they can hear wildlife all around.
像我们现在听到的，像那种鸟就是白头翁，然后偶尔你会听到像绿袖燕，然后松鼠。
The volunteers, known as peace trackers, travel around the city in search of places with sound levels lower than 55 decibels. It's a threshold recommended by the World Health Organization for residential areas, as excessive exposure to noise can increase the risk of depression, high blood pressure, and high blood sugar. And although Taipei's noise levels are not much higher than the typical European city, its sheer density means there are fewer places people can go to escape. One peace tracker, Chan Jiaming, says the places like the riverside, temples and parks are a good start.
让我比较惊讶的是，像我们平常都会做的捷运，已经习惯它的音量大小，但其实测量起来，它其实一直在侵害我们的耳朵，它的分贝其实都有到80-90以上。
The volunteers loaded the data they collected onto an app to create a map that visualizes the noise levels around Taipei.
这张地图上面啊，大概有180个点位，所以红色部分就是大于55分贝，蓝色就是小于55分贝哈。
And on top of the volunteers' data, the scientists have developed a sound box that processes real-time sound data to create a 3D map of Taipei. The map changes depending on altitude and time of day.
那上面的噪音盒子，这个所谓声音盒子的 Soundbox 的部分，是我们新开发出来的哈。好，所以我们现在其实可以每1个小时可以产制一张所谓的台北市的3维噪音地图哈。
When the researchers first started the sound map last year, they found 3 in 10 Taipei residents lived in red zones. They say it's helping find the source and solutions to excessive and consistent noise. But for those who can't wait for those solutions, the map can show the way to the city's most peaceful places. Joseph Wu and Laurel Stewart for TaiwanPlus.
A water purification plant in the southeastern county of Taitung is the first in Taiwan to generate hydropower. The plant can generate electricity for more than 200 households per day using water that is later treated for household use. Officials say that water remains clean and safe. The government is ramping up efforts to expand hydropower at 3 other purification plants across the country. Taiwan is cracking down on outdoor smoking to reduce the harm caused by secondhand smoke. The Health Ministry has extended smoking bans to more than 160 outdoor spaces. This includes national parks, forest recreational areas, and other green spaces. Smoking is only allowed in designated smoking areas in those places. Violators could be fined up to $300 US. Now, Taiwan sent 94 athletes to the Asian Games back in October, but only one, black belt David Wei, went to compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Our reporter Bryn Thomas hit the mats with him to find out what it takes to be the national team.
If you're part of Asia's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community, you've probably seen this guy. You might have even had the pleasure of fighting him. At 32, David is one of the best Taiwanese players in this sport. He represents Taiwan as part of the national team and is sometimes the only athlete from the country competing in jiu-jitsu events. That was the case at this year's Asian Games in Hangzhou, China, and it won't be the last time. For David, who has a family, a small business, and a job, flying the flag is both a privilege and a huge responsibility.
在赛前，我的心理是非常脆弱，而且我有很大的压力，因为这次中华队就只有我代表柔术这个项目去比赛，所以大家对我的期待非常深，希望我有好的表现。所以说，其实我都不是睡得太好，然后有时候也会影响到训练品质。
David failed to win a medal at the Asian Games, but he's still training hard for several upcoming matches. He's working with another Taiwanese black belt and former national team member, Justin Lin, to sharpen his skills. He trains 6 days a week, often twice a day, doing a mix of sparring, drilling, stretching, and weightlifting. It's a no-quit attitude he's carried with him since the start of his career.
当我白带的时候，我没有在 tap 。我白带的时候，因为我就是很笨的那样，别人 choke 我就OK 就睡觉这样。我在比赛的时候人家安霸，我就觉得应该没事，我手就真的断掉了，你知道吗？我手就真的被折，啪，哇就受伤了，真的很痛，非常痛。到那个时候我就开始真的想是说，哇，我真的要很注意我的身体，你知道吗？身体要跟我一辈子。
12 years later, and after a bit of physical therapy and over 100 competitions, David's now a black belt. He's married, owns a gym, and teaches classes in Taipei. Several afternoons a week, he hosts grapplers and coaches from other gyms for no-nonsense sparring here at iFighting.
David's intensity and David's effort and David's mind and David's soul elevate everybody here, and that's why I train here at iFighting with David, because he elevate all of us.
It's a common sentiment amongst jiu-jitsu athletes in Taiwan. David's ability to juggle his family and financial responsibilities while training to compete at the highest levels stems from his role as a leader in Taipei's martial arts community. By competing with the national team, teaching, and sharing his experience, he hopes to blaze a trail for the country's youth.
让人家抽到中华队，觉得哇，我们都要中华队，这是一场不容易的比赛。有这种想法，然后我们可以有好的选手站上颁奖台。我要就是真的竞争非常激烈，然后台湾人站上1、2、3名，我觉得这是我想看到的。
David will insist that his successes in this sport were only possible because of the support he receives from his family, his coaches, and his teammates. He pays special attention to his youngest students while eyeing other opportunities to represent Taiwan.
我很努力在教我的后辈，一些白带、一些蓝带，甚至小朋友，非常努力在教他们，因为我都可以预见他们现在这么努力，他们13岁，当他们18岁的时候，他们只要中间没有放弃的话，他们会变得非常厉害。那有一天，就是我们台湾选手就可以在世界舞台上被大家看到，这是我的想法，这是我现在想要做的事情。
If David's passion for the sport rubs off on even a few of Taiwan's younger athletes, the future of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the country is sure to be bright. Andy Xue and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for joining us today on Here's What Happened. Finally, relax and enjoy the rest of your weekend with these huge sperm whales at the world's first sanctuary for them in the Caribbean nation of Dominica. I'm Eric Gao. Take care, and we'll see you next time.